For almost 2 centuries, there's been this hard and fast rule in mathematics, a line that we were told was impossible to cross. But what if it wasn't? What if that hard limit was just a misunderstanding? Today, we're looking at a claim that could literally rewrite the textbooks on algebra.
And that's really the big question here, isn't it? We are talking about a theorem that has shaped the world of math since the 1820s. So for someone to claim they've broken it, well, that's not just a small step forward. That's a potential revolution.
So, to really get a feel for just how big a deal this is, we've got to go back in time. We need to look at the source of this problem, a challenge that has had mathematicians scratching their heads for centuries.
Look, we all remember trying to solve those quadratic equations back in school, right? The ones with x squared? Well, imagine what happens when you have x to the power of 5, or 10, or even 20. Finding the exact perfect answers, what they call the roots, it just gets ridiculously exponentially harder.
And that brings us to this year, 1824. This is the year the math world pretty much hit a brick wall. A brilliant young Norwegian mathematician, Niels Henrik Abel, published a proof that seemed to close the book on this question forever.
And here's the key takeaway. Abel's theorem basically said you can forget about finding one single elegant formula, like that quadratic formula we all memorized, that can solve any polynomial once you get to the fifth degree or higher. It's just not possible. And for nearly 200 years, that's been treated as a fundamental truth of algebra. So why? Why was this considered a dead end for so long? What was it about these equations that just seemed, well, unsolvable using the classic methods? Okay, so let's break this down. It really comes down to a few things. First, the deep symmetries of these equations, which are described by something called Galois groups, just get wildly, unmanageably complicated. The tools that worked for the simpler stuff just break. Second, another piece of the puzzle called the discriminant literally explodes into millions of terms. It's impossible to handle. And what was the result? Mathematicians had to give up on finding perfect answers and just settle for close enough estimates from computers.
And this table just lays it all out, clear as day. On the left, you've got the old school way of thinking, thanks to Abel and Galois. Impossibility, settling for approximations, accepting that some things have limits. But on the right, you have this radical new claim from Professor Azyuti, exact solutions, 100% verifiable symbolic answers, and this philosophy that says, no, we don't accept those limits. It's a complete paradigm shift.
All right, so who's the person making this incredible claim? Who is the mind behind this direct challenge to centuries of mathematical thought? His name is Professor Murad Sultan Izzuidi, and he has published work where he claims to have a complete, exact, and totally verifiable solution for a 20th degree polynomial. His argument isn't that Abel was wrong exactly, but that his theorem was just a milestone that we now finally passed. And this quote from him, wow, it really tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. He sees the history of math not as a set of walls, but as a series of frontiers that are just waiting for someone to cross them. So, how in the world does he claim he did it? Well, the method he's proposing ditches the classical toolset and brings in a whole new framework built on an idea called recursion. All right, I know what you're thinking. This formula looks absolutely insane. I get it, but you don't need to be a math whiz to get the core idea here. The magic isn't in understanding every little symbol, it's in the process that it represents. So you can really boil it all down to a three-step process. First, he throws out the old tools and brings in this new framework based on recursion. Second, this new system lets the equation kind of solve itself, step by step, generating its own perfect answers through a chain of calculations. And finally, because every single step is pure algebra, the final answer isn't a close enough guess. It's an exact symbolic root, no approximations needed. So let's just imagine for a second. What if he's right? What if this claim is verified and accepted by mathematicians around the world? The fallout would be, well, it would be profound. We're talking about rewriting a fundamental chapter in the story of algebra. So, what does this actually change for us? Well, for starters, it suggests we can move away from a world of close enough approximations and into a world of pure mathematical exactness. It means any polynomial, no matter how ridiculously complex, could be solved perfectly. Abel's famous impossibility theorem would no longer be a wall. It would be a historical landmark we passed on the road. The whole story of algebra would shift from one about limitations to one about infinite discovery. And that's where we're left, with this massive question. Professor Izzudi's work is a bold, audacious claim that a 200-year-old barrier in human knowledge has just been shattered. Now, of course, the mathematical community has to do its job, test this, verify it, and debate it. But whether it turns out to be a revolution or not, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are the limits we accept in science and math truly final, or are they just the edge of what we currently understand?